lads, give your heart and soul. Run lads, shoot lads, give us all a go. Run lads, shoot lads, you can do it yet. Come on Newport County, oh, bang it in the net.
Hello everybody and welcome to Taff's Word. Long time in coming, but I felt like such an arse after the last Taff's Word because of what proceeded afterwards. You know, I've had to really evaluate and regulate my thoughts to actually put together what would be my next Taff's Word. You would have just seen the title, The Rowberry Collapse. Not having a dig at James Rowberry personally or anything like that, because I quite like him. I quite like his style as a manager, to be honest with you, but it's just not working now. The thing that turned me was the Stevenage game, seeing how much harder they work than us. And that's one thing that I've been picking up through the season is the work rate doesn't generally tend to be there, or we don't at least match the other team's intensity. You know, other teams seem to work harder. I don't know if that's a directive from Rowberry, whether it's, you know, don't run all over the place, smart press and not constant press like the other teams are doing to us. We're trying to play a possession-based game, but we're incapable of doing that because the other teams are putting the constant press on us and we can't play our way through it adequately enough. Individual errors come from an effective press, and individual errors are costing us at the moment. So I think that's where a lot of our problems are coming. I think Rowberry's trying to implement a brand of football that would be effective in a higher division with higher quality players. Nothing against our players. We got some really good players. I think the quality is there. I just think the system, the setup isn't right. I mean, you've seen that quality. I've seen that quality from the beginning of the season. I would have mentioned in my last video, and I stand by the fact that there is quality in this squad. It's an effective, potentially effective squad. It's a squad that has good depth, but there's too many individually poor performances. There's a collectively poor performances like Stevenage, Grimsby, Barrow. I missed the Forest Green game, unfortunately, but you know, all I seen on the stats when I was looking in on it was no shots on goal at all for about at least an hour of the game, possibly a lot longer than that. I wasn't keeping tabs on what the minute was at that particular point. I was looking and thinking we haven't even had a shot. Yeah, I mean, there's personal favourites of mine who aren't playing to what I think they can at the moment this season. Matty being one of them at the moment. Absolutely adore Matty, as you guys know. I actually speak with Matty outside of the actual football. But the thing with Matty, I think he'll be the first one to admit he knows he's not in his best form. And I think there's a lot of them who aren't in their best form. Even Mickey hasn't been as good as he usually is. Scotty Bennett is always reliable. You could always rely on him to get a 7+ performance in every game. And so far, I don't think he's averaging a 7 anyway, or anywhere near it, possibly not even a 6 at the moment this season. Although in the Barrow game, I thought he had a good first half, but we in general had a good first half, but with very little end product. And that seems to be the problem. We have got a top striker, a top League 2 striker who will score lots of goals for us this season if he gets the service. Now, we got Nevers who can run at players, but he can't run through an entire team on his own. And then when you get good defensive players, players who know how to effectively prevent dribbling players from running past them, he's got no support because what he needs to do is play the 1-2 through them. If they can tackle him and he can't run past them, he needs that support. We need that floating, attacking midfielder, that number 10 that they were highlighting that they needed. That could have been the key ingredient, but the Zanzala injury forced us to go out to go and get Nevers in the end. And then when we got Hayden Lindley, he's not a number 10. He is, I think it was a signing to rectify an issue spotted by many supporters in midfield. Now, I put my hands up and admit that I didn't see that issue where a lot of them did. I now see that issue, and it seems to be where we're losing these games seems to be in the midfield. But the midfield can be effective if the rest of the team is effective. So if we're playing that back four, and we're playing three in the middle, and the three up top. Now the three up top, are we looking at two inside forwards? Because the thing is, at the moment we're playing two up top. We're playing two. There's no width in that team. I know you can spread out, or you can have your wing backs and everything like that. But when you're playing a back four, you're too open if you both full-backs go forward. You look at Liverpool, for example, with that. I mean, obviously both full-backs go forward, and it's down to the defensive midfielder and the centre-backs to clean up any counter-attacks. We're not good enough to clean those counter-attacks up. But what we need to be is, if we are going to leave ourselves open at the back, we need to be absolutely shit hot up top, basically, which for me would be a front three. Where I would play it right now, this is how I would do it. I love Nick Townsend, but I've always been a big fan of Joe Day. I played Joe Day in goals, but Nick Townsend is quality. We're lucky to have two top quality League Two goalkeepers, but there's just something about Joe Day that I've always felt very comfortable when he's in goal. Not to say I'm not comfortable with Nick Townsend, it's just Joe Day just has that effect. You know, there's very little between them, and when you have to make a snap judgment on them, for me personally, Joe Day, because of my experience with him, just gets that nod in goal. Cameron Norman has been disappointing for me this season. He's not shown the dribbling quality that he's got, the crossing quality that he's got, you know, just his general attacking. He hasn't even been as effective in the air for me as he was last season, you know, because he gets into those midfield aerial battles quite often and would often win those battles. I mean, one of the most popular goals from last season was our winner at Hartlepool last year, and it was his header in the box that nodded it down for Telford to nod in the winner in injury time, and that's where I remember him being so aerially strong, but he doesn't seem to be having it. But I would still start him at right back. Now, one of the Lewises, I'm going to play A. Lewis at left back, safe bet. You know, I think Aaron would just about get the nod for me in a strongest starting 11. Aaron Lewis, I think Az is great. I think he's a great technical footballer. He's a good reader of the game, and he offers us, you know, a lot going forward and coming back. So I would pop Aaron in there. There's something about Priestley at the moment that I think he's coming on in leaps and bounds. I would put him with Mickey at the moment in the centre of defence, although I'm a big fan of Drysdale. He hasn't had the best of starts, not saying he's had a bad start, but he hasn't had the very best of starts, and I think there's a lot more to come from him. And yeah, that would be my back four at the moment, although James Clark I'm a big fan of as well. That's what I mean, strength and depth. We got a phenomenal depth in our squad. I would play a holding midfielder, and people may shoot me down for this, and you may say it's me being biased because I'm friendly with Matty, but I play Matty Dolan in that as a deep-lying playmaker, because he can ping those passes around, a bit like Alonso used to do for Liverpool. Now, I know there's a big difference between Xabi Alonso and Matty Dolan, although I just rate Matty, and I think his ability from set pieces is crucial in a game. And one big point, if he's appointed as the captain should always be the first name on the team sheet, and that's something I stand by with anyone. So for me, Matty Dolan has to start in that midfield. Along with James Waite offers us a lot going forward. So I would play James Waite because he's tenacious, he's quick with his feet, and he can pick a pass. I would play James Waite because of his attacking threat. And Mariah Welsh would be your key box-to-box, and James Waite would be your playmaker. And then up top, then Bogle in the centre as the big target man, and playing off of him either side, you would have Nevers, and then you'd have Will Evans. Now, I can't think what their strong feet are, but if both of them have different strong feet, you'd swap them around so they cut in onto their strong foot. That's the inside forward role. That's how I would play them, 4-3-3. There's a very similar thing. There's a very similar setup to what Jurgen Klopp plays at Liverpool, although I would put measures in place to have a bit of extra protection on for the counter-attack, so I wouldn't have the fullbacks going forward together like Liverpool do. They would alternate, so if the player's building up down the right, Norman would get forward, Azza would drop back. You know what I mean? And then Matty gets in and amongst it, but never in the box, if that makes sense, unless it's at set piece, but he would be taking it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I've given my opinion on how I would set this Newport County team up, and you know, it's nothing personal to any of the players who I haven't selected in that team, but that's just how I would set us up with our strongest 11, my opinion. But yeah, the collapse is there for all to see. You know, we're trying to play a brand of football that is just too sophisticated for League Two. You have to understand that in League Two there's an element of physicality, there's an element of playing the percentages, you know, playing certain balls forward that would put defences under pressure, putting balls into midfield that, you know, what's the percentage chance that your players are going to win that ball? You know, how are you picking up your second balls, playing your percentages? There's a chance that we may not win that ball, but if we put him there, he'll pick up the second ball. Positioning. The positioning isn't quite right for me. We lose a lot of second balls. We lose a lot of individual battles. So is the intensity there? Is the desire there? I'm not going to say the desire's not there, but are we working on the right things? Are we working on certain measures that are going to allow these players to win individual battles? And the thing is, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes in the training. But yeah, the problem for me is work rate, effective press, trying to play through an effective press without the quality to do so, and the service to Bogle is poor. Decision making in the final third is one of the key areas that we're faltering with. The thing is, if we score goals or if we pressure them a little bit more into retreating a little bit more, then sometimes we're not going to be put under pressure enough to have these individual errors ourselves. So for me, we have to make our press more effective. We have to basically find a way through an effective press without trying to play around with the ball too much. The thing is, if they're pressing us, they're leaving space open there, and that's where we have to exploit it. We have to find where. Now, if they press as a team, there's always a way we can get around them, or we can get through the channels. Because they're coming forward, we can slip it through. We got to find the way of doing that. Effective press will prevent that. But, like I say, it's League Two. There's plenty to exploit because the quality isn't as high as what I'm trying to say. The quality of the players is not as high as the sophistication of the tactics that we're trying to implement. Now, obviously, Rowberry would have learned an awful lot from his Cardiff days. He would have seen Premier League teams set up. He would have seen, you know, top-end Championship or prospective Premier League teams setting up in certain ways. I mean, one of the best teams I've seen from the Championship, for example, was Wolves and Nuno Espirito Santo. Rowberry was there then. He would have seen how they set up. He's taken an awful lot of these bits from these higher-end league teams and trying to implement it into League Two. And it can't work like that. You have to understand League Two for what it is to mould that in the right way for it to work for us. So that's my opinion on it. Rowberry collapse. Now, today we play Carlisle at home, and we really need to see a massive improvement in the performance for the fans to start believing again if Rowberry is to save his job. There's a lot of fans basically saying that a loss today could see Rowberry get the axe. I don't think it'll happen as quick as that, although I may agree that maybe it should. I mean, it was the same rule for Rowberry as it was for Feeney, for Butcher, and anyone else, Anthony Hudson. Now, as much as Hudson and Feeney have gone on to be successful afterwards, their job with us was too soon. Is it the same for Rowberry? Now, I want him to prove it wrong. I want him to prove that wrong. Is it going to be, in this case, you know, taking a chance on a young manager? Is it going to be third time lucky for us? Because it's looking like it's not going to be at the moment. But I really like Rowberry. I want him to succeed. I want him to do well. And you can see it means a lot to him to do well for us. So over to you, James. You know, One thing I'd say to any manager, don't be too proud and stubborn to take on what you need to take on to alter your style of play to fit the league that you're in, because your style of play may work in one place, it's not going to work everywhere. That's what I'm going to leave it with now. All right, thanks all for watching. Those going to the game today, I'll see you there. Hopefully I see lots of you. The one big concern for me is the dwindling attendance numbers. That is a concern, because that's a financial impact to the football club. We would have budgeted for a certain attendance, and if that attendance starts going below what we budgeted for, that's where financially we could be in a bit of a pickle. But hopefully a good performance today, raise some confidence in those players, and then push on from there and see if they can build on that and save Rowberry's job. Over to you. Cheers all for now. Cheers all, sorry. Thanks for watching. And as always, up the county. See you all later.
Ole, ole, ole!